Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's topic is as intense as it is significant. Belarus is in turmoil, Russia is stepping in aggressively, and Ukraine may be seeing a unique opportunity to shift the momentum in its long-standing war with Moscow. This isn't just about protests or politics. This could redefine the balance of power in Eastern Europe. Let's break down what's happening, why it matters, and what it could mean for the future of the region. Over the past few weeks, Belarus has erupted in chaos. The country, often referred to as Europe's last dictatorship, is experiencing a level of civil unrest that hasn't been seen in years. Crowds of angry citizens have flooded the streets of major cities like Minsk, Gomel, and Brest, protesting against worsening economic conditions, government repression, and growing Russian interference in domestic affairs. At the heart of the unrest is longtime President Alexander Lukashenko, whose authoritarian rule has left many Belarusians feeling powerless and desperate for change. This unrest didn't come out of nowhere. It's been brewing for years, but recent developments have pushed people past their breaking point. Inflation is spiraling out of control, wages remain low, and public trust in the government has hit rock bottom. Add to that the feeling that their country is slowly being absorbed into the Russian sphere, and it's no surprise that tensions have finally boiled over. Protesters have clashed with riot police, government buildings have been attacked or set on fire, and the regime's response has been swift and brutal. Thousands have been arrested, internet blackouts are in effect, and videos of violent beatings are flooding social media. Russia, not surprisingly, is deeply involved. Moscow considers Belarus a crucial ally and a strategic buffer against NATO expansion. Losing Belarus or even seeing it fall into political instability would be a major threat to Vladimir Putin's regional ambitions. In response, Russia has already deployed so-called advisors, intelligence operatives, and unmarked military units to help Lukashenko regain control. While they claim it's to maintain order and prevent chaos, most experts see this as a thinly veiled occupation meant to secure Russian dominance. At first glance, this may seem like a crisis for just Belarus and Russia, but there's a third player watching the situation closely: Ukraine. For over 2 years, Ukraine has been locked in a devastating war with Russia. The front lines have hardened, battles have become more static, and progress has been slow on both sides. But now, with Russia distracted by unrest in Belarus and possibly forced to stretch its resources, Ukraine might see a rare opportunity to gain ground. Ukrainian military leadership has been carefully analyzing Russian troop movements and logistics. If Russia diverts manpower or equipment to stabilize Belarus, it creates potential weaknesses in its positions in eastern and southern Ukraine. Ukrainian forces have already increased surveillance and reconnaissance missions, especially around Zaporizhzhia and Donetsk. There are also reports of heightened troop activity and logistical movements, suggesting that Ukraine might be preparing for a limited offensive aimed at exploiting Russian distraction. Politically, this also plays into Ukraine's hands. Kyiv has worked hard to maintain international support, but as the war drags on, fatigue has set in among Western allies. A well-timed push, even if it results in modest territorial gains, could re-energize foreign backers, secure more weapons and funding, and prove that Ukraine is still capable of turning the tide. It also serves as a morale booster for the Ukrainian people, who have endured years of hardship, displacement, and loss. Meanwhile, Belarus could become an entirely new front in the wider regional conflict. If protests continue to spiral and Russia increases its military involvement, NATO may be forced to respond. Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia, all NATO members bordering Belarus, have already begun increasing border security and raising readiness levels. NATO surveillance flights over the region have also increased, Though direct intervention is unlikely, the possibility of spillover or accidental escalation can't be ruled out. Inside Belarus, the opposition is gaining momentum. Figures like Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya, who has been in exile, are calling for international attention and democratic reform. The Belarusian people are demanding more than just economic relief. They want sovereignty, freedom, and a future that isn't dictated by Moscow. Their courage in standing up to a regime backed by one of the world's most aggressive military powers is not going unnoticed. Still, the road ahead is uncertain and dangerous. Russia's strategy appears to be maintaining control at all costs. If it manages to crush the protests and prop up Lukashenko, it sends a message to the rest of the region that Moscow's grip remains firm. But if the regime collapses or becomes unstable, it could trigger a chain reaction in other post-Soviet states. Countries like Kazakhstan, Georgia, and even Armenia are watching closely. The Kremlin's ability to dominate its neighborhood is being tested in real time. For Ukraine, timing is everything. Acting too soon or without proper coordination could backfire. But waiting too long could mean missing the chance to alter the battlefield equation. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky faces a critical decision. With pressure mounting from both the public and military leadership, he'll need to balance ambition with caution. The stakes are enormous, not just in terms of territory, but in shaping the future of the conflict itself. Economically, Russia is also under pressure. Sanctions are hurting, foreign investment has dried up, and domestic discontent is slowly rising. A prolonged crisis in Belarus only deepens these challenges. More resources will be needed to maintain control, and the political cost of appearing weak is something Putin cannot afford, especially with future elections and internal power struggles looming. Looking ahead, there are several possible outcomes. The Belarusian protests could fizzle out under pressure, allowing Russia to tighten its control. Alternatively, they could evolve into a more organized resistance, triggering internal collapse. Ukraine might succeed in launching an effective offensive, shifting the war's momentum, or it might find itself drawn into a broader conflict if Belarus becomes a staging ground for Russian aggression. Regardless of which path events take, one thing is clear: the region is at a crossroads. What's happening in Belarus isn't isolated. It's part of a much larger battle for influence, identity, and independence. Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia are all connected in this high-stakes game, and the decisions made over the next few weeks could shape Europe's future for years to come. Thanks for tuning in. This is a developing situation, and we'll continue to monitor it closely. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next update. Stay informed, stay safe, and see you in the next video.